No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
We promise much to discuss here on the Illegal Curve post-game show presented by our friends at Play Now. But, Mr. Ginsburg, for a lot of this game, up until about the 58-minute mark and 54 seconds, there was not going to be a lot to discuss because it was a pretty sleepy game, a pretty quiet game, and it looked like it was going to be all for naught. Then the Winnipeg Jets, late in the contest, pull the proverbial rabbit from their hat and end up somehow, some way, with a 2-1 overtime victory. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Friday night. I see Colby Spence is in the chat as well, set to bring us post-game comments from Winnipeg Jets head coach Scott Arniel. So we'll bring those to you just as soon as we have them ready as well. But in the interim, Ezzy, good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, you mentioned, it was a little bit sleepy, but the Jets put 16 pucks on Arvid Soderblom. Like that, this was, like you said, Drew, a minute away, actually, from being a situation where the Jets were Soderblom, right? Just like they were Vamelka so many years back against the Arizona Coyotes, right? Like, so Soderblom, obviously, you feel bad for him, but
yeah, you do.
Not if you're a Jets fan, really, because Soderblom was pretty dejected as he was leaving the ice. But
yeah,
that was a very impressive effort, and that was his first start of the season, right? Because Peter Mrazek started the season opener against Utah Hockey Club, right? So,
yes,
look, Chicago's impressive, and we talked about this on last week's show when we were doing our season preview. Obviously, none of us picked Chicago to make the playoffs, but they're definitely not going to be a 52-point team, I think, is what they had. Like, they're a respectable hockey club. You look at guys like TJ Brody, Alec Martinez, Tyler Bertuzzi. Like, did you honestly think, Drew, that Patrick Maroon would have that big of an impact in a game? Like, Maroon, he gets high-sticked, sticked, he gets an assist on Ryan Donato's goal, right? Obviously, we'll get into that, but for a while, it was looking like Donato might get the Seagram's shot of the night, right? But, good on the Jets. I mean, look, Velarde had a bunch of chances in the third period. Appleton had that chance with about 3 minutes left after Niederreiter drove the net, right? So, I mean, like, the Jets, even though they were unable to get a goal past Soderblom until late in the third period, they were the better team in the third period. You give probably the second period to Chicago. I think you'll probably agree with that. And, Donato scored the goal in the second period. But I just thought that in the first period, I mean, it was all the Jets' speed. They were dictating the pace of play. And in the second period, they just didn't really have a lot going on. But then in the second half of the third period, they started to bring it. So, look, Scheifele said it when he was talking to Sarah Orlesky after the game, right? You're never out of the game. And then when it goes to 3-on-3 overtime, we know that the Jets have some pretty skilled players who can make some nice moves. We've seen Scheifele and Connor do it so many times before, and they did it again. So, I mean, the story of tonight, in addition to Soderblom, is Mark Scheifele. I mean, that's what a leader does. That's a huge tying goal. And then off of face-off wins, and the Jets were great in the face-off circle, especially Nemesnikov was like 65% or something. But there's definitely parts of that game that were not pretty. It wasn't a pretty game, but at the end of the day, Jets fans go home happy. And it was a little too close for comfort, I think we would say, Drew. But it's a win is a win, right?
A win is a win, and the Jets will take that. And they're not going to be in terms of aesthetic quality. The game on Wednesday in Edmonton was a far better game for the Winnipeg Jets. But they'll take the victory, a comeback victory. Speaking of comeback victories, touchdown Terry Wilson just punched the ball into the end zone for the Bombers. So they're scratching and clawing their way. They're now down by 2 points to the Toronto Argonauts, as that game is late in the fourth quarter. We'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on the campus of the University of Manitoba throughout.
They need a 60-yarder from Sergio Castillo.
Well, they might need, that to end the game. They got to get a defensive stop though early. So we'll keep an eye on the Bomber game. Terry Wilson, of course, formerly the quarterback for the University of Kentucky, so he's near and dear to my heart.
The great Commonwealth of Kentucky.
The Commonwealth of Kentucky. Yes, thank you, Ezzy. That's exactly right. Look, nothing about tonight's game from the Jets' perspective was pretty. It was sluggish, would be the word that I would use. But when you have a team like Chicago, and you're right, you have a good point. This is not the same Chicago Blackhawks of last year. There's more professional hockey players on that team, guys who are undoubtedly towards the end of their career, but guys who know what it takes to grind and win and just have that respectful brand of hockey. So guys like you mentioned, Pat Maroon. Look, Pat Maroon's there to provide veteran leadership. Tyler Bertuzzi, all those guys are just there to provide veteran leadership, to have NHL bodies on the roster, because last year they really weren't an NHL caliber team. This year they don't want to go through that.
They were a joke last year. Like they were please pass go and collect $200, right? Like they were. I mean, we talked about it. 52 points, I think it was. They were dead last in the Central Division, and this year, look, it's only a couple games. And I know the game against Utah, I think they lost 5-2, but there was an empty netter there, and it was a 1-goal game in the second period. But they're going to be a respectable hockey team. Like, they're hardworking. Luke Richardson, I mean, not only did he play well over 1,000 games in the NHL, he's been a hockey coach for a long time, obviously with Ottawa as an assistant, right? So, I mean, he has that team well coached. And this is it. Look,
if you don't show up to play against them, they're not going to roll over. You need to put forth the effort. And for a while in tonight's game, it was a struggle for the Jets. Let's, brass tacks, they came out as the better of the two teams early in that first period, certainly, and for the majority of that first period. And then it just became a bit of a slog. There was not a lot of space for them to get speed going. Passes weren't connecting well, and Chicago was able to sort of start to take a little bit of an advantage to that. They were able to jump on some opportunities. They were able to just sort of stem the tide of the game and turn the flow of the game in their favor, which is what we saw in the second period. And we saw that for a lot of the third period. To the Jets' credit, they stuck with it and they get the goal late in the game. And we'll touch on that when we get into the Play Now game recap here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. But there just wasn't a lot going well for the Winnipeg Jets in tonight's game. They're fortunate that they were playing against Chicago, because you don't need your A game to beat the Blackhawks. They get that late goal, and then they get the overtime winner, but there's still not a lot there from the Jets' perspective that they're going to want to emulate, maybe except for the face-off circle, where they were absolutely dominant, in the face-off circle, winning 63% of the face-offs in tonight's game. But there's not a lot in the Jets game tonight that they're going to want to emulate on Sunday when they play their, I'm going to say, a bitter division rival in the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And obviously the Wild are another team that's kind of in that mushy middle of the Central Division, right? With Utah and, I don't want to know if you want to throw the St. Louis Blues in there. I think the Blues might be second or last in the Central Division. But no, you're right, Drew. I mean, look, the Jets got a couple power plays. The power play didn't look very crisp tonight. I think you'd agree with that. And look, we talked about it. Chicago, like a guy like Jason Dickinson's out there on the PK. TJ Brody, we talked about him. Like TJ Brody, he's 34 years old now. He might not be the same Brody that he was when he was with the Flames or even the Leafs, but he's a really good, solid defenseman. I really like Alex Vlasic. I know he coughed up the puck in the third period.
What, a 6-year contract extension this offseason?
Yeah. Well, I think because he's 6'6", right? He's a big boy, but and he's also a hometown boy. He's from the Chicago area, but Vlasic is a good defenseman, and just before we get into the goals, as you mentioned, Drew, you were
Scott Arniel's coming up momentarily, so we'll do Scott Arniel first. But finish your thought. We'll bring him in as soon as we see him in the backstage here.
Well, you mentioned some of the veteran players they brought in, like Patrick Maroon and Alec Martinez. These guys only have 1 or 2 years or 3 years left in their NHL careers, but they're bridging the gap for guys like Frank Nazar, right? They're bridging the gap for like Kevin Kurchinski, who was on the back end last year, but he's now going to be starting the season in the AHL. Lucas Reichel, a first-round pick in the Cole Perfetti year. They're bridging the gap before some of these other young players
They're just protecting them.
Exactly.
I mean, if you bring those guys into the league, they're going to get steamrolled. You can't have a team that's just filled with puppies. I mean, that, and I'm not being not intending to be disrespectful to those guys. They're all talented. That's why they're
or to puppies.
Or to puppies for that matter. But you're right. Men against boys. You can't have a team that's just filled with boys. It's why the JV doesn't play against the varsity for 82 games, because it's not going to go well for the JV. And so that you bring in those veteran guys to teach the young guys what it takes to be a pro hockey player, what the grind looks like. When it's game 2 and it's game 3 of the season, well, everything's new, everything's fresh, everything's fun. When it's game 40 and when it's game 45 and then you're really grinding your way through the season, that's when you need sort of the veterans to be able to just to pull you through the muck a little bit.
I thought former Hart Trophy winner Taylor Hall looked pretty good in this game. Speaking of guys who were towards the end of their career, he missed basically all of last year.
10 games last year, I think.
Yeah, something like that. He didn't play a lot last year. I thought Philip Kurashev looked really good. He was second on the Hawks in scoring last year. I think we've got Scott Arneal now, Drew.
Yes, I think we do. Let's bring him in here on the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Yeah, 2 right there. A couple of legends right here. A couple of legends right there.
Mark Scheifele, those last 2 or 3 shifts, winning face-offs in controlled fashion, diving for pucks, setting picks, losing guys with deception. How would you describe what he did towards the end there?
Yeah, I mean, those are obviously 2 gigantic goals. The tire was big. If you're going to score goals, you got to get to that net. And, what Fly did on the face-off, they were coming around, and we had some movement and kind of hopefully crossed them up a bit. But just getting to that net front, I would like to see him get it in the first 15 minutes of the game instead of the last minute. But at the end of the day, you need your best players to, come up big at the right times, and they did. That group did.
How much did that game-tying goal resemble what was drawn up on the chalkboard on the bench?
It's exactly like he drew it up there. Exactly, no. But the high crisscross up top was a little bit of a design, but at the end of the day, it was that was more about pucks and numbers at the net front. So I mean, we got it into the paint. Big play by Pionk. Prior to that, them not getting the empty net opportunity, and us getting a second chance at it.
And last one. Connor Hellebuck, just the impact he had on this game.
Yeah, I mean that's we knew they were a rush team, and first period we gave up 4 rush chances. Third we gave up a few more. They transitioned quick, and we left him there a few times where he really had to he had to make some big stops for us. And I mean that's what he does. That's what he's he knows when games are tight like that he has to make that one more save to keep us in it, and that's what he did tonight again.
What was the thought process behind putting Ehlers with Lowry and Appleton?
You know what? It was, I mean, I did it for, 2 shifts? All I wanted Nino to get to the net front with the other 2 guys, and I was trying to get Fly some space because it was Bedard a lot of the times against Lau, and I was just trying to open him up a little bit so that, he had those Apple and Lau kind of open up some space. I mean, we tried it 2 times there and see if it was kind of, there's a couple times where they got some zone time, but I was just, we're sitting in a game, we hadn't really created a ton of offense. I was just trying to open some stuff up there for both lines.
And just with Ehlers too, how impressed with how he, the third period really seemed to find his stride in terms of creating offense. Did you notice a difference in that third frame?
Well, yeah, I liked his third better. I mean, our whole group actually, our execution wasn't very good on the whole. We had 10-foot passes. We were missing guys. Just our execution altogether wasn't very good for 60 minutes. And then, but Fly's a guy that, when he's skating and puck possession kind of guy, he can be very dangerous. And I think that I liked him a lot better in the third.
Yeah, you just said that you guys kind of came off it about 8 to 10 minutes in, and then it took a while to get there. So what are your takeaways going to be in terms of taking this game and the way Chicago maybe made you force some things and taking it forward?
Well, if you look at the first 10 minutes of the game, probably and then the first 10 of the third period, we put pucks below the goal line and we went after them. And we went and made them play down low, forced them to defend. I thought, after the halfway through the first and then all of the second, we were playing on the outside. We weren't getting a whole lot of sort of greasy, hard, plays that were like we've done like we did in Edmonton, like we did at the start of the game, and like we did at the start of third. We got pucks down in. When we get it down low and go to work, when we get two guys on the puck, the other guy sitting in the hole, when we play that way, it opens up our top, it opens up the D-men. And I just thought we really got kind of playing a spaced out game and with not great execution there for the other parts of the game.
You still went back to the big guns at the end, and they got you the goals and they got you the win. One of the striking moments, I think, for me after the game, they showed Scheifele on the Jumbotron, and when they announced it was his 300th goal, his grin was like, it was a kid's grin. It was youth, it was passion, it was joy for the game. We don't always get to see that side.
Yeah.
What do you see from this?
Well, those
guy?
are big milestones, you know. I mean, 300 goals is a lot of goals and in this league, and to see that enthusiasm, he probably forgot about it. He probably knew he was close, and but at the end of the day, anytime these guys can do that and do it in that fashion, to tie a game late and then win it in overtime, he'll remember those goals, 299 and 300, I'm sure.
Scott, just going back to the Pionk play, is that just an awareness or desperation kicks in? Or
the biggest thing, he attacked the puck. He didn't back up. He really, because their guy had to get to the red line. If he waits and backs up, they maybe make another play, or the guy takes a shot at the net. But the kid didn't want to ice the puck, and P did a great job of attacking him, and obviously stopped that there, give us a chance to get it back and get in, and we got the face off. Right. Thank you. Thank you.
There he goes, Winnipeg Jets head coach Scott Arniel joining us this evening, courtesy our buddy Colby Spence in the Matt Frost Media Center, bringing the post-game audio from the Winnipeg Jets head coach to you here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Friday night Play Now Illegal Curve post-game show. Just keeping an eye on the Bombers here. Zach Collaros is trying to run for a first down to extend the game. He stretched out on 3rd and 17. It's unclear if he got it. I thought he might have been a bit short. It's going to come down to, it looks like he's a bit short on 3rd and 17. Toronto's probably going to take over on downs, but a hell of an effort by the Bombers quarterback to try and extend the game. The Bombers down by 2 points. Sorry, Ezzy, multitasking on this Friday night.
I'm watching the game. Hey, we're both, Drew, we were Blue Bombers season ticket buddies for 2 years. I mean, we're both big Bombers fans, so I've got the game on here at Dave's house. And look, I mean, if the winning streak ends up coming to an end, it's a hell of a winning streak, 8 games. Mm-hmm. I mean, I still think the Bombers are the best team. They're measuring it now. I think he might be a little bit short, but there's only 55 seconds left. So
yeah, they are measuring it, but it does appear as though he is going to be short. We'll keep an eye on that as well. Look, I think Scott Arniel, and before we get into the game recap, we have to mention what he talked about. Neil Pionk's defensive play, to prevent what should have been a golden opportunity into an empty net before the Jets were able to tie it up. That is quite possibly the play of the game, Ezzy. If he doesn't make that aggressive decision, Neil Pionk, then then the Jets are likely on the losing end of tonight's contest.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, I didn't think Samberg and Pionk were as strong as they were in the season opener against Edmonton, but that's absolutely a key play. I forget, was it Kurashev that made the play? I forget. Yeah, Pionk made the play on Kurashev. And look, we talked about it, and you asked us the question, Drew, on last Saturday's show, the season preview show, like, if you could isolate, 1 or 2 players or one area, what's going to be the biggest, key to the Jets' success this year? And we all agreed that the Samberg-Pionk pair, just because, Samberg early on in his career has only played on the 3rd pair, and obviously Pionk had a rough year. And, part of that had to do with, he was dealing with the loss of one of his best friends. So that's something that, we have to factor in. I mean, at the end of the day, hockey players are human beings. They're not robots. Mm-hmm. But, the Jets hope that Pionk gets to that level that he was at, 2 or 3 years ago. And I think he's been pretty solid. So you like to see that. Yeah. And obviously, like, Hellebuck made some saves in the 3rd period.
The glove save off Nick Foligno. Yeah. That's the save of the game for Connor Hellebuck. He had a number of good saves in the course of tonight's game, but it's the glove save off of Neil Pionk that is the absolute That's the robbery of the game by Connor Hellebuyck, just flashing the leather to keep it at a 1-goal game at that point in time. And that's what the Jets rely on Connor Hellebuyck for so much, is just making that one save, making that key save while the team is sort of struggling, while they're trying to find the way to get their legs underneath them and get their skating legs together. That's what they rely on Connor Hellebuyck for, that he knows his team as well as anybody. Yes, I've given up the one, but I'm not going to give up another one so that my team only needs the one to tie it up.
Absolutely. And, in a game in which the Ehlers Nemesnikov Perfetti line just didn't have it. Like I thought Ehlers was really struggling out there. Like obviously he was noticeable, as he always is, with his speed and everything like that. But the other chance that I made a note here on my phone about was Ehlers turned the puck over. Taylor Hall was pressuring him in the neutral zone. And then Phil Kurashev, who we already talked about, who was second on the team in scoring last year. He's a good player. He's really, turned into a solid hockey player, in the last 2 or 3 years. And so it was asked, I think it was Jacob Stoller, if I'm not mistaken, that got that question, and with Scotty Arneal about Ehlers playing with Niederreiter and Lowry. And then obviously you saw Barron up with Nemesnikov and Ehlers, right? You saw Perfetti there. I know that wasn't, we're not going to start a controversy here and say that Perfetti's, getting bumped down to the fourth line or anything. No, I didn't think Perfetti had the best game
either. I like
either.
that, but I like when they go to that Scott Arneal went to the blender to try and get something going, because it was a struggle. The Jets weren't generating anything.
It was a slog.
He said it, it was a slog. He said it himself early in the game. They were grinding the Blackhawks well down low, and then from about the 10-minute mark of the first period, and throughout the second period, Chicago was doing a great job of using their speed and keeping the Jets from getting into the front of the net where they can really do some damage. And then, so Scott Arneal did what a good coach, I think, or a coach needs to do in that situation, is try something different. What they had been trying wasn't working. So why keep banging your head against the wall? Try something new. And that's what you saw there. And I like that. Now, I don't expect that all of a sudden the lines are going to change dramatically for Sunday's game against the Minnesota Wild. I think it's going to be exactly the same lines that started tonight's game. I'd be very surprised otherwise. Yeah. But at least you're trying something. You're trying something mid-game to generate some enthusiasm, generate some offense, generate just change what you're trying to do to see if the Blackhawks can answer it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we talked about it earlier, like the Scheifele Connor Velarde line. By the way, the challenge is coming in here. I can't believe this challenge has taken this long. I'm not sure. I have the sound off here, but I don't think they got the first down, did they, Drew? But it certainly took a long time to challenge it, didn't it?
Yeah, the Bombers challenging the spot. They lost the challenge.
Yeah.
Toronto takes over 1st and 10. Probably will wrap up the game at this point in time, but we'll keep a close eye on it.
Well, and look, I mean, it's the old saying, you can't win them all. The Bombers have won 8 games in a row. I mean, that's pretty darn good. So I think, I would agree, just in terms of the switch that you saw with Morgan Barron getting elevated. And look, I mean, this is one of those games we talk about this all the time. Coaches talk about it, players talk about it, but the Jets were just not getting to those dirty areas, and they weren't getting enough inner slot shots. Like I know I don't mean to get too technical here, but I mean they just weren't. There was a lot of shots from the outside. I mentioned earlier Scheifele. One play that stood out to me that I made a note of is there was a good rush, and Velarde had a scoring chance, and Scheifele was right in tight with Soderblom, and instead of trying to stuff the rebound in, he looked to pass to Connor, and it didn't get to Connor. And to me, that kind of summed up the game, right? Like it was the same thing on the 2 power plays. The first power play in the first period was terrible. The second power play, at least they had some zone time and they were able to set things up. But to me, it was kind of more of the same, looking for those 2 cute passes. And look, I mean, hockey games are not always going to go like they did in the season opener versus Edmonton, right? Like you're not going to win 50 out of 82 games by winning 6-0, where everything goes your way and you play this kind of perfect defensive hockey. For the most part, like I thought, there was definitely some turnovers, and we talked about Ehlers turning the puck over in the neutral zone, which led to that Kurashev chance in the third period. But as you say often, Drew, their attention to detail at times, and Scott Arniel, I don't know if he used the word sleepy or spacey. I think he said spacey. It kind of had that feel, parts of the second period, parts of the third period, where there was kind of lulls in the Jets game.
Yeah.
And they were being outplayed. Let's be honest here. There was parts of the second half of this game where the Jets were being outplayed by the Blackhawks. And that's, a testament to the moves that they made in the offseason. Like the Hawks are not a joke. Last year, let's be clear here, they were a joke. They were an easy win. And this year they've added some veterans, and now they're going to be a little tougher to play against.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And so the Jets learned that lesson in the course of today's game, that they're going to be tougher to play against. They get the victory, ultimately 2-1 in overtime. So why don't we get into it? It's the Play Now game recap here on the Illegal Curve hockey show. Illegal Curve post-game show. It's brought to you by our friends at Play Now. Learn to bet with Play Now, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. No scoring in that first period, a first period that was controlled by the Winnipeg Jets. Certainly early on in that first period, the Jets were better of the two teams and had the control, had the pace of play to their benefit, but nothing able to get past the Blackhawks goaltender. And then the second period is a better period for the Blackhawks, undoubtedly, and they end up getting an a late goal in the second period, 16:52 mark. Ryan Donato, assist by Patrick Maroon. We talk about it there. Again, two guys who are towards the end of their career, but are NHL
journeyman. That's the way I would explain these guys.
Yeah, journeyman. But but at least they're NHL caliber journeymen.
Yep.
They're not AHL guys masquerading on an NHL team. Ryan Donato coming down the wing with some speed and a nice shot short side. Connor Hellebuck probably wants it back because a goalie never wants to be beat short side there, Ezzy. But it's after a bad pinch by Neil Pionk on this one, and Donato just a really nice shot and a quality goal to give the Blackhawks the 1-0 lead late in the second period.
Yeah, and it's a very, speaking of veteran players, this is just a veteran play, right? Like Neil Pionk moves in and tries to press Patrick Maroon. He sees him and Ryan Donato, they just timed that perfectly. And Dylan Samberg had the shot originally, and it comes all the way back to Maroon, and then Pionk tries to make the play on him. And then Samberg, I just thought was kind of, I don't know if you would say flat-footed, but he was just a little bit slow to react. Like Ryan Donato is a pretty fast player, actually.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, Hellebuck, we know that his, he gets exposed a little bit sometimes on his glove side. And I'll choose my words carefully there. Sometimes he gets exposed on the glove side. This is a 2-time Vezina winner here, but you're right. I mean, I don't know, I watched the replay, and I don't think Samberg, because Samberg was right there with Donato, a little bit behind him, but I wanted to see if maybe Samberg's stick got on the puck. It didn't. I mean, it was Donato beats him glove side, short side, right? It was a late goal in the second period, and you got to give those two guys credit. And they were rewarded for some of the good plays that they had earlier in the period, right? So at that point in the game, obviously it was demoralizing. It's only a 1-goal game, but look, it goes back to what I was saying before. I really think that, I'm not going to say the Blackhawks are going to surprise anybody. The Central Division is way too deep for the Blackhawks to make the playoffs this year. But they have guys that can make plays. And look, speaking of Connor Bedard, I mean, everybody obviously is focused on Bedard. He didn't do much tonight. It wasn't that line. I really think it was the Kurashev-Taylor Hall line that did most of the damage for the Blackhawks tonight.
Bedard's shot is still just such a weapon.
Bertuzzi, sorry. Kurashev, Hall, Bertuzzi is the second line. I forgot who the other player on that second line was. Yeah. Hall, Kurashev, and Bertuzzi. I thought by far that was the best Hawks line.
I thought they were probably certainly the line that you noticed the most. I mean, Kurashev's speed. I mean, Bertuzzi and Hall have the veteran smarts. Taylor Hall's still a good player though in this league. I mean, we know that he's he's not that many years removed from his MVP campaign, and last year, of course, injury riddled, and he missed most of the season. But most NHL teams will still gladly take a guy like Taylor Hall on their
He's
team.
got a little gas left in the tank.
I think so. I would agree with that comment. So 1-0 for the Blackhawks after 40 minutes, and then the third period starts. And again, it's a bit of a grind. The Hawks are still doing what they want to do. The Jets are not able to get the puck in deep. They're not able to really grind down low, which is what you heard Scott Arniel talking about. That was when the Jets were at their most effective in the course of today's game. Chicago was certainly, particularly in the last 10 minutes of this game, not really taking any risks at all, making the neutral zone relatively impassable. We talked about it briefly, but Nick Foligno has a golden opportunity. And if it's not for Connor Hellebuyck flashing some leather, that's right around the halfway mark of that third period there. If Connor Hellebuyck doesn't make that 8+ save, instead of it being a 1-0 game, it's a 2-0 game in the favor of the Blackhawks. And the way the game was going for the Jets, it seemed like it was going to be hard for them to come back from a 2-goal deficit in the latter half of the third period.
When people look back on this game, like they're going to remember the late Scheifele goal and the fact that the overtime winner was his 300th goal. Not many people are going to, think about Hellebuck's save on, as Kevin Sawyer called it on the broadcast, a hockey card save. And they're not going to necessarily think of, the Philip Kurashev save off the Ehlers turnover in the neutral zone. But Hellebuck has only allowed a goal in 2 games, right? He was really good tonight. But that's just what you expect out of Hellebuck, right? Like to me, that's the difference maybe between a good or very good goalie and the great and elite goalies are that they can let in a weak goal. Like I always talk about Marty Brodeur, Drew. I know it's, ad nauseum here, but like Brodeur would let in a weak goal, but then he wouldn't let in any other goals. Right. And that was like, I think, there's some similarities with Hellebuck. He rarely has bad games. Obviously, he had a pretty bad preseason game, but then he followed that up with 2 really solid preseason games.
Yeah. Absolutely. Connor Hellebuyck is it looks like he's going to be Connor Hellebuyck.
Unless someone can show us a reason why he's not going to be, the best or at the very least a top 3 goalie in the league, show it to us, because there's really not a lot of proof unless you're going to point to the playoffs. But again, we've talked about this so many times on the show. The Jets weren't nearly good enough in front of Hellebuck against the Avalanche or the Golden Knights a couple of years ago, right? So I don't think you can take a couple playoff series and, take that away from Hellebuck. He was really good tonight. And even though, the Hawks, I think, put a little bit of a scare into the Jets, they were able to weather their storm and they were able to stick to the game plan. And, again, not all, like, throughout the course of the season, I think we saw 2 very different styles of game. This was more, as Paul Maurice used to say, right? Like this is a little bit more of a grinder, a little bit more tight checking. The Hawks were blocking a lot of shots, keeping the Jets to the outside, and they stuck with it and got the big tying goal and then finished it off in overtime.
Yeah, and so let's get to the tying goal. It happens late in the third period with the net empty. Connor Hellebuyck is on the bench. The Jets have the extra attacker on, and it starts with a face-off win. And, over the course of the year, you're right, face-offs aren't going to, over the course of 82 games, face-offs don't matter on the macro sense of things, but in the micro sense,
they only matter when they matter, right, Drew?
Right. Yeah, you want to win them as much
when it fits your narrative, it matters.
Largely, you're right. And tonight they mattered for the Winnipeg Jets, especially late in the game, as Mark Scheifele wins the face-off. The puck gets to Nikolai Ehlers, and then there's a loose puck in front, and Mark Scheifele, really puts forth that extra effort and hacks at it and is able to poke it past Arvid Soderblom into the net, tying the game up with 1 minute and 4 seconds to go. And a crowd that had been pretty silent in downtown Winnipeg because they hadn't had a lot to cheer from, notwithstanding the Connor Hellebuyck saves, is finally able to cheer the Winnipeg Jets scoring a tying goal with 1 minute 4 to go.
Yeah, and Kevin Sawyer said it with Dan Robertson on the broadcast, right? Robertson, pardon me. In a game like that, what's going to happen is you're going to get a goal through traffic, and then there's going to be a rebound or a tip or something like that. And again, it's a very skilled play to drop to your knee and get the backhander rebound in. But it was Joey Anderson who was out there. It was the Dickinson line, the Hawks' third line, who was out there protecting the 1-goal lead there. But yeah, I mean, in this particular case, the faceoffs matter both on the tying goal and the winning goal in OT. But I think this is a perfect example. And, again, it's a cliche in hockey, but I thought Scheifele, Velarde, and Connor were solid all night long, and they just couldn't solve Soderblom. Like, right? We talked about in the third period, Velarde had, I counted at least 3 shots on net, Drew. I'd have to check how many shots he ended up with.
Velarde ended up with...
He must have had at least 4 shots.
Hang on, I got it right over here. Why can't I find it here on my list? Looking at my stats, apparently I forgot the ability to read. 3 shots on goal for Gabe Velarde tonight.
So then they had at least a couple chances in that third period, and so they get rewarded. And I thought Connor was really solid, finding open space, using his cutbacks as we always talk about. And
they got to get the Nemesnikov, Ehlers, and Perfetti line going. I don't know.
That's two kind of average games for that line.
Yeah,
or even below average.
Yeah, they were not great by any stretch of the imagination. They were just, again, a step behind, and some players and some lines need a little bit more time, but the Jets are going to rely on that line. Even if it's the third line, it's relied on as the second scoring line, whatever you want to call it, time on ice wise. It's the second scoring line, and the Jets need to get those guys to find a little bit of mojo. Again, I'm saying that after 2 victories, so it's much better to say that after 2 victories than 2 defeats. But that's what the Jets need, because obviously that they're going to be relied on significantly to provide some offense this season.
Yeah, of course. And these are the types of games where if you don't get that extra point, or you don't even get a single point, as the Jets were very close. Yeah, you'll look back on that, and that was a criticism not only last year of the Jets, but it's been a criticism, going back many years, where the Jets have a sleepy game against a San Jose Sharks team, or a sleepy
lesser team.
Exactly, and you can't have that. So I mean, this is huge, and again, maybe huge is maybe getting a little bit too excited here, but I mean, you want to make sure that you're picking up these points earlier in the season. We know the Central Division is going to be better, so. Again,
look, and the schedule's soft for the Jets in October.
Yeah,
it's not a particularly challenging schedule.
No, and you've got a very rare kind of 4-day break between the game on Sunday against Minnesota and then the game against Friday against San Jose, right? So You're right. I think, don't the Jets only have 2 games or 3 games against teams that made the playoffs in their first 10, something like that?
I think there's just, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to look at it right now, but I think there's only 1 left this month, and that's against Toronto.
Yep.
Yeah, it's Toronto on the 28th. Every other game this month is against, after the Edmonton game, every other game is against non-playoff teams from last year.
Right. So there you go. And then obviously the schedule is going to get harder starting in November, right? But I mean, the point is, like, this is when you want to bank some points. And so again, like, this was a game that could have gone either way, as Scheifele talked about in his post-game comments, when you get to 3-on-3 overtime. But, we've seen that time and time again where they're able to get the extra point and get the job done. So I think, it does show you that they were able to fight through a little bit of adversity in this game. And, maybe in previous years, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the year the Jets missed the playoffs, that might be the type of game that they lose. Right. But look, Scheifele makes it seem easy. Like not only the way that his comments to Sarah Orlesky after the game. By the way, great to see Sarah back with TSN. It just feels right. You know what I mean? Like,
I was gonna say that, but you're right. Yeah. Having her as the host on the broadcast, there's something comforting about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So great to see, and obviously our buddy Craig Button, who we're going to have on the show next Saturday, not this Sunday, but next Saturday. So Sarah and Craig, I mean, are just like, you could watch them all night long, right? So, just really impressive. And, Scheifele makes it look easy. He's done it so many times, and just a special night for him getting goal 300.
And goal 300 comes 38 seconds into overtime. It's Scheifele, his 3rd of the year, his 300th of his career. Assist to Kyle Connor and Josh Morrissey. Just a beautiful cycle. I mean, that was just them using their skill in overtime and to beat, and you can't be on the wrong side of the player. And that's what the Blackhawks forward was. He was on the wrong side of Mark Scheifele, and Kyle Connor made no mistake in finding Scheifele all alone in front of Soderblom, and Scheifele puts it past him to give the Jets would seem like they pulled it out of the fire, an unlikely 2-1 victory tonight in downtown Winnipeg, starting the season off right on home ice with that 2-1 victory to go 2-0 so far. One win in Edmonton, one win at home, and they're back in action on Sunday against the Minnesota Wild. We'll go to break. We'll come back. We'll bring some post-game comments. We'll remind you about the programming note regarding this weekend's Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Much more to come. What is it? It's Friday night. It's the Illegal Curve post-game show. Jets win 2-1. Don't go anywhere. Drew Mindell, Ezra Ginsburg, the Illegal Curve post-game show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
25 minutes before the top of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mindell, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Friday night. Programming note for this weekend, okay? Everybody's got their pens and papers ready to write this down.
Their iCal.
Yeah, put it in an iCal, put it in your Google Calendar, whatever you want to do to write this down. There is no Illegal Curve hockey show tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is Yom Kippur. We are co-faxing it. We are going to be good Jewish men and not do the Illegal Curve hockey show.
Good mentions, good boy chicks.
Exactly. We're not doing the Illegal Curve hockey show on Yom Kippur. Instead, Sunday, we are doing the Illegal Curve hockey show, 9 a.m. Sunday morning, the regular time, just a day later than normal. Sunday, 9 a.m. back here on our YouTube channel. We're doing the Illegal Curve hockey show.
We're doing the buffet. We got Kenny.
The buffet. Kenny's already signed up to join us for the buffet. He's excited. We've been talking about it all week. So Kenny Weeb's going to join us at the buffet on Sunday morning, and we'll get you set for the Jets and the Wild. So tomorrow morning, go spend quality time with your family. Whatever you're going to do it with them. But be sure that you're back on Sunday morning, 9 a.m. for the Illegal Curve hockey show, as we're going to do it on Sunday instead of Saturday this week.
I don't know about you, Drew, but I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. We've been doing this show on Saturday mornings for over 15 years. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I just always assume every Saturday morning I'm going to be doing the show, right? So maybe I'll go for a nice leisurely stroll
Yeah,
Maybe I'll do
maybe you
some
should go
grocery shopping.
If you're not going to synagogue, then you should commune a little with nature. There's all sorts of ways you can repent for your year's worth of bad deeds.
Yep.
So maybe that's something you should do tomorrow. Whatever it's going to be, make sure that it's a high quality morning, because Sunday morning you're going to be back here with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I neglected to do something very important when we were doing the Play Now game recap, so we'll do it now instead.
The Seagram shot of the game.
As he told me, he's got a giant bottle of Fireball there. So do you want to do it for the 200? Yeah, there you go. Do you want to do it for the 299th goal of Mark Scheifele's career, or the 300th goal of Mark Scheifele's career?
It's a good question. I mean, maybe we should do the Seagram's shots of the game. Let's give it for the overtime winner. We got to give it for 300. We could easily have given it for 299 because that was huge. But this is a nice l'chaim for Mark Scheifele, his 300th career goal, and for the big 2-1 Jets victory.
There you go,
Mark.
There you go. As he taking a nice little belt of the Seagram's Fireball.
Delicious.
Big thanks to our friends at Seagram's for their continued support of the Illegal Curve post-game show. Fireball tastes like heaven, burns like hell.
We need our friends at Seagram's to send us more Fireball, Drew, because this is getting a little bit low here.
Oh dear, Ezzy, that is a cautionary tale on display right there. We'll have to get Dave M to work his magic to get you a little bit more Fireball there.
I'll have that finished by the end of the night.
Yeah, it's going to be gone by the end of the show. Who are you kidding?
Just sit here and just drink the rest of it by myself.
Beautiful.
It got really dark here all of a sudden, Drew.
It really did. It got a little dark, a little bit concerning. We might have to delve a little bit deeper in that off air without having everybody around for that conversation. A post-game comment from Mark Scheifele, given that he's the overtime hero in tonight's game. This courtesy of our friend Murat Atesh of The Athletic. Quote, "It's pretty humbling to think about. It's pretty wild. I'm just very thankful for the guys I've played with. I've been lucky enough to play with some really good players. It's all thanks to them." That's Winnipeg Jets forward Mark Scheifele on his 300th goal in his career so far. The OT winner was goal number 300 as the Jets come from behind, pull a victory out of the jaws of defeat and beat the Chicago Blackhawks by a 2-1 margin. Before we wrap up, here's some stats for Connor Hellebuyck through 2 games, 2 wins, goals against average of 0.5, and a .982 save percentage. Just go ahead and start stenciling his name back on that Vezina trophy.
Honestly,
if he's locked in like that this year.
No, but it's just incredible because, like we talked about, nobody's going to really remember necessarily how well Hellebuyck played because you just expect him to play that well every single game. Like, there's very few goalies that you expect to play like that, right? Like, you would say Igor Shesterkin on the New York Rangers. You'd probably say UC Saros on the Nashville Predators. Maybe Ilya Sorokin, Andrei Vasilevsky. Throw in maybe 5 or 6 goalies in the NHL right now. Bobrovsky, I guess you would maybe throw in that category. But I really think, it's Hellebuyck and Shesterkin that are really a step above. Look, we're gonna have Marty Biron on the show. Who better to ask about the play of Hellebuyck and guys like that? The elite goalies than Marty Biron, who was an elite goalie in his day.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really a big part of tonight's win is some key saves that Hellebuyck made in that third period, and the Jets just sticking with it and eventually tying it up with a minute or whatever was left in the final frame. Minute 4. So again, like, we'll dive more deep into some of the lines and everything like that on Sunday's show. But I mean, look, 4 points in the first 2 games for the Jets. I think fans are pretty happy, even though there's some spacey parts of that game, like Scotty Arneal said.
Yeah, some spacey spots, but 2 victories in 2 games. The dream of 82-0 is still alive through the first couple games of this season. That'll do it for us here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. Big thank you to all of the sponsors of the post-game show who make this show, the Saturday show, this week the Sunday show, and the website a possibility. Particularly our friends at Play Now. They're the title sponsor. Learn to bet with Play Now, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. Our friends, of course, at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Derek Stroop in town. He's played 2 sold-out shows all week long. 2 more shows tomorrow. Very few tickets available. Get them now. rumorscomedyclub.com. Holt Dental, City Place, Boston Pizza, and of course, our friends at Seagram. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. In case you missed any of the show, the instant replay is immediately available on the channel, and the podcast will be available shortly. Be sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and the podcast. Don't miss anything that Illegal Curve puts forth. If you subscribe, you'll be sure not to miss it. Again, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Not Saturday, but Sunday morning at 9 a.m. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show this week only. Sunday, we'll see you back here for that. We'll talk about the first 2 games. We'll preview the Jets and the Wild. Looking forward to a special Sunday edition of the show. For Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Thanks, everyone, for watching us. This has been the Illegal Curve post-game show.